What's up YouTube, Capital G here, talking about a certain type of card in this video that I believe Konami needs to stop printing. These are the cards that make people absolutely furious with the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Make them extra salty and want to flip over a table. These are also the type of cards that promote skillless gameplay, which I would imagine Konami would probably want to minimize as much as possible. And then lastly, these are the type of cards that make your wins feel completely hollow. They make them feel unwarranted, unjustified, and ultimately it makes you feel like even if you won, you weren't the better duelist. What type of cards am I talking about? I'm talking about those terribly designed cards, the ones that benefit you most when you are losing. These are the type of cards that I cannot stand the most. I hate them so much. I don't understand why Konami continues to make these cards. You guys know the examples I'm going to bring up in the video. Cards like Evenly Matched, Evil Swarm, Exciton Knight, and actually one more card that fits under this category that a lot of people might not think about because it's not played in a typical type of deck, but the deck is still Cancer itself, and I'll talk about it momentarily. Balance of Judgment. Yeah, if you actually look at the other two cards and compare Balance of Judgment, it actually fits in quite nicely with the other two. So if you watch my most recent top 10, the one about Konami's biggest and most controversial Yu-Gi-Oh! Mistakes of 2017, you're probably under the impression that I am no fan of these cards and cards like their design. And you know what? You're absolutely right. I can't stand them. I hate them. I don't even agree with their fundamental ideology. And I don't understand why Konami R&D, why the people who designed Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards would make them. Like, it just doesn't compute in my brain. Why would you ever, like, make cards that essentially reward a player for losing, and not just that, but give them effects that are so powerful, so game-breaking, that they go from losing to almost certainly winning if they actually resolve the card. They're completely momentum changing, and it doesn't make any sense. Like, it's like when they design these cards, they're thinking, so what if we made a card that only works when you're losing, but then it just lets you win? Like what? Why would you want that in the game? I mean, that takes like luck and basically says it trumps skill, and that's something you never want. Like, don't get me wrong, these are the type of cards that are perfect for like the manga and the anime, you know, because you want to have your hero have a flashy comeback victory when he's on the edge of defeat and stuff like that. That's great, man. But for actual real Yu-Gi-Oh!, for competitive and real life Yu-Gi-Oh!, like, these cards have no place in the game. You should be trying to minimize luck as much as humanly freaking possible. And when they make cards like this that get the maximum potential when you're losing, it just really, I can't honestly think of any like logical reason why they would make these type of cards. So you look at cards like Evenly Matched and Exciton Knight, and don't get me wrong, I don't want people thinking that I'm saying that you're not allowed to have any type of luck in Yu-Gi-Oh! All card games have luck. You can be the best poker player ever. It doesn't matter if somebody calls you with, you know, 2-7 offsuit and you have, you know, pocket aces. If they hit a 2-2-7 on the turn, then you basically lose, and it doesn't matter how much better you were than them. Like, there's an element of luck in every card game. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be power cards. There's always going to be power cards and playmaking cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm perfectly fine if you have the Soul Charge and you end up winning because you summon back 5 monsters off of one card. If you have the perfect, you know, answer to me. If you have the Maxi and Maxi nets you 5 cards, or it puts me in a position where I can't really expand and make a board and you basically just overwhelm me. I'm fine with the Gofus and the Scapegoats, generally in moderation, right? I'm fine with those cards and moderation, because a lot of times, like, those are just one-ofs and you only have to deal with them one time, which is perfectly acceptable to a level. I'm also fine with having cards that punish overextension, because I think a lot of people are going to say, well, Cap G, Evenly Matched, and Exciton Knight, they're the punish overextension. Don't you get it, you scrub? Believe me, guys, I'm from the old days of Yu-Gi-Oh! I started playing in regionals during the GX era. I understand punishing overextension, but to me, these are like unhealthy overextension punishers. Like, first off, I don't even think that they're legitimate overextension punishers, because they only really work when you're losing. And then I feel like even if you're going to argue that, it's unhealthy in that sense too, because if you look at like what I would consider healthy punishers would be cards like Torrential Tribute, Heavy Storm, and Dark Hole. Yes, I went there, Heavy Storm. I'm just basically using it as the opposite of like you know, a card like Dark Hole, right? But these are the type of cards that say, hey, your opponent put 5 cards in their back row, they had no way of protecting themselves, they kind of deserve to be blown out by Heavy Storm. Same thing if you fire firewall spam turn 1 and you don't make any card that can actually, like, you know, negate a spell effect, if you get Darkhold, that's your own stupidity. You shouldn't have put all those resources on the board without having any way of protecting them. But like, when you look at these cards and you look at Torrential Tribute, these cards only take out either all your monsters or all your spells. They don't take out everything. Like, that's what Exciton does. That's what a card like Evenly Matched does. And people will probably say, oh, but Cap G, they have drawbacks though. Them drawbacks though, Cap. I mean, I said it when Evenly Matched was announced. Like, is it really a drawback I lose my battle phase to basically win a game? Like, you know how many times I've beaten Pendulums with like going second with like Trickstars or something because I just opened with Evenly Matched and I take out like 5 of their cards with 1 and the game's basically over at that point. Doesn't matter that I don't get a battle phase. Like, I have so much advantage, you're not going to be able to come back. The same thing could be said about something like Exciton. I remember playing in the Art 5 days, or I'm gonna, you know what, fuck it, Art V days. I like saying Art V. I'm not gonna say Art 5. I know it's called Art 5, but I remember playing back in the Art V days and to be winning an entire duel, to only have my opponent top deck away to, you know, get to Exciton Knight, and because I didn't have a Solemn Warning, I basically lost my entire board. And you have to keep in mind that Exciton was a card that was a quick effect, so even stuff like Bottomless Trap Hole, Book of Moon, like Exciton didn't give a fuck about those cards. Oh, you can't do battle damage. Is that relevant when you just nuked my entire board? Is it relevant that I don't get my battle phase when you basically activated a literal hand trap, a trap that can be used from the hand, or at least it could be used, yeah, well, let's just call it a hand trap. It could be used from the hand that basically just nuked everything on my field and banished it face down, so I'll never get those cards back. I just really don't like them. And I also want to talk about a card that not a lot of people actually mention, but Balance of Judgment. People don't mention this one because for the most part, it's only played in Chainburn, which I think is a degenerate deck. And don't try and be like, ah, Cap G, how come you'll call Chainburn degenerate, but you won't call Trickstars? The difference between Chainburn and Trickstars is, I mean, like, I get it, they both do effect damage, but the difference is jarring. The fact that Trickstars actually interact with your opponent, like Trickstars can play things like Clashing Souls and Honest and, you know, Solemns. Like, those are cards that actually interact with your opponent. Like, Chainburn doesn't want to interact with you at all. Chainburn just wants to play its own little fucking game of Yu-Gi-Oh and just ignore you. The only time Chainburn interacts with you is when you activate a card, and then it's just like, oh, okay, you activated something. Secret Barrel, Ojama Trio, Reckless Greed, Threatening Roar, Chain Strike. Like, it's interacting with you. So it's kind of like apples and oranges. They're both fruits, but they're kind of different. Balance of Judgment is kind of like the same thing, right? So I'm perfectly fine with Chainburn being a deck that plays essentially a bunch of neg 1, because a lot of the best burn cards, Chain Strike and Secret Barrel, a lot of them are just neg 1 cards. Like, I'm perfectly fine with that. And the way that you were supposed to be able to recover, in fact, they designed it in, or they released the card in the same set as Chain Strike, is you're supposed to really have to run these kind of like like these cards that have like either huge drawbacks, cards that are extremely high risk, or cards that you have to kind of jump through hoops to draw. You know, cards like Accumulated Fortune, you can only activate it as Chainlink 4 or higher. Reckless Greed is a card that can backfire, and it might end up losing you to duel. If you want to rely on that, I'm fine. But the problem is, if you're going to burn all your burn cards, you know, take a bunch of neg 1s, do like 4,000 burn damage to me, and then, you know, flip over Balance of Judgment and draw like 5 or 6 cards, like, I got a problem with that, man, because now you weren't punished at all. But ultimately, what do you guys think? Do you guys think that these cards aren't healthy for the game? You think Konami should stop printing them and just eliminate them? I don't even care if they ever see play or not. Like, even if Evenly Matched never saw play, I just don't agree with the fundamental design and the ideology of these cards. And again, I don't want people to misconstrue. I don't want some guy to be like, oh, Cap G, that's nothing. This one guy top deck soul charged one time, and he ended up beating me because he soul charged 3 monsters back and I lost and he had 4,000. No. I don't want people misconstruing. Again, I'm fine with Yu-Gi-Oh! Having Luck-Sacky cards. Usually in moderation, most of those cards are limited. If you end up winning because of a top deck Gofu or a Socha, like, that's whatever. You're always going to have top deck Luck-Sack in Yu-Gi-Oh! I just have a problem when the cards are designed to work specifically best when you're losing, and then those cards have game-breaking effects in them. Like, you don't go from just losing to even, you go from losing to winning. Like, that's what these cards do, you. Soul Charge is a card, you know, Scapegoat. These are cards that when you're losing, they're good. When you're winning, they're good. When you're even, they're good. Like, the consistency and the power of the card doesn't really change all that much. But cards like Evenly Match, like, when you're losing, they just go Super Saiyan Guy, you know what I mean? And they just, like, obliterate your opponent, and they take you from losing to winning. And I have a problem with cards like that. So whatever you guys think, leave it in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. As always, subscribe if you have not already, and turn on those notification bells for daily videos. Happy holidays, everyone.